Narendra Modi's Gun Ki Baat. Prime Minister's Kalashnikov moment goes viral. Modi picks it up, takes aim and fires. Meme makers in total ecstasy.
Well, you really couldn't think of a better name for that viral image that came in from Def Expo in Lucknow. Gun Ki Baat. Narendra Modi there with a Kalashnikov rifle. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Battle Cry. I'm Shiv Arur. This is the only show that gets you up close with weapons, technology, Indian defense and how India fights. And boy, do we have a timely show lined up for you today. This is Battle Cry.
Unleashing hell from the sky. Unmanned, unseen and brutally armed. Predator drones have proven kills. Now India hunts for its own combat drones. But can India ever use them? Will killer drones change India's game? And are there tough questions ahead? The big story on Battle Cry.
Well, sit tight because over the next half hour, we're going to ask some hard questions that you've been curious about and also tell you about India's real drone master plan. It's stuff that people don't usually talk about and you probably have a lot of curiosity about it. We're going to answer every question. Joining me this evening on Battle Cry, we have Gaurav Sawant, our senior executive editor, also our defense editor, Abhishek Bhalla, who's been at the Def Expo show reporting on all the drone developments there as well. But first to our main story on Battle Cry today. What is India's drone intentions? Why does India need armed drones? We've got drones for surveillance, but India specifically wants drones that can drop bombs and launch missiles. But why? How does India plan to actually use this? Is it fantasy or is it reality? Take a look.
Picture you definitely haven't forgotten. This month last year, Indian guided bombs came smashing down on this terror facility perched on a hilltop near Pakistani city of Balakot. India's punishing response to a Pakistan-sponsored terror attack in Kashmir's Pulwama 11 days earlier. The airstrike, now the stuff of legend, was conducted by Indian Air Force Mirage 2000 jets flying some distance away in hostile airspace over Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. In other parts of Pakistan, the aerial bombing of terror camp is no special event, but rather a routine affair. Thanks to a fleet of Predator Reaper drones operated from hundreds, even thousands of miles away by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. The two types of airstrikes aren't comparable at any level. Pakistan has no choice but to go along with the American drone strikes on its territory, but a reasonable question has lingered for years. Can India ever conduct drone strikes of its own? A complicated, difficult question, but one that hasn't stopped India from aggressively looking to acquire armed predator-like drones capable of precision strike. So here's what India's quest to operate armed drones look like right now. In days from now, Donald Trump arrives in India on his first visit as United States President. India is hoping for forward movement on requests for Avenger Hunter-like drones, the most advanced version of the Predator Reaper. So far, the United States has only been inclined to supply India with unarmed Predator Sea Guardian drones. But this could change. The Indian Armed Forces currently operate unarmed Heron drone from Israel for surveillance and reconnaissance, but is close to acquiring an armed version of the drone called the Heron TP. At the recent Defense Expo trade show in Lucknow, the Israeli firm revealed partnership that could see such drones being built in India going forward.
So we are now entered into certain collaborations with Israeli companies. One is for a medium altitude long endurance UAV. For which will bring in some technologies as far as new payloads are there, and it has a reasonably good endurance limits.
Apart from potential purchases of armed drones, India is also developing its own, though these could take a while to prove themselves. For starters, the Rustam 2 long endurance drone that's already in flight test mode is being seen as a future carrier of strike weapons, something the armed forces are very keen on seeing possible. But it is little known Ghatak, on which India is currently bettering the future of drone warfare. The Ghatak, still in the early design phase, is to be an unmanned stealth bomber capable of evading radar, penetrating deep into enemy airspace and unleashing weapons on predetermined targets. Question remain on whether and precisely how India can ever use combat drones against its adversaries, but there is no doubt India has chosen to acquire the capability, and that very soon. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what is absolutely clear is that India wants armed drones. It has programs developing them, and it has acquisition programs to acquire them either from the United States or Israel. Gaurav, make sense of this for us. Using armed drones is a issue that is fraught with controversy. It is, the use of predators in Pakistan has been controversial around the world. We can't really compare our relationship with Pakistan with the US's relationship with Pakistan. How does India plan to use these drones that it's looking to acquire?
Shiv, from time immemorial, forces wanted to know what's happening on the other side of the hill, and drones help you know what's happening on the other side of the hill, what the enemy is doing, his numbers, his strength. Now, whether it's an army or it's terrorists.
Yes.
Drones with their cameras, they can loiter in the sky for a very long time. They can look at the target, but as of now, they're relaying those images back to you real time. In the times to come, India hopes to be able to take out that target. That target may be a Hafiz Saeed.
Yeah.
It may be a Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. It could be a Zarar Shah. It could be a Maulana Masood Azhar. It could be a Daud Ibrahim.
Yeah.
Or the plans are big. It could be take out one of the terror training facilities, or the owners of those terror training facilities,
Yes.
the Pakistan Army. Will it lead to escalation? Well, it depends. You'll have to be geared up for it. But the biggest advantage is your pilots, their lives will not be at risk.
Absolutely. Like in the Balakot airstrikes, for instance, Indian Mirage pilots had to cross into hostile airspace even though they had to spend very little time before they launched their weapons and they made their way back, which has given rise to questions over whether drones can in any way be applied to missions of this kind. Abhishek Bhalla, our defense editor, has been at the Defense Expo show in Lucknow. He joins us now. Abhishek, lots of deals we saw signed at this Def Expo which actually look at partnerships for drones, including armed drones, to be manufactured in India. So India is very, focused on acquiring this technology.
Well, considering future challenges, armed or combat drones are definitely a necessity. It's on the cards, and the country is moving towards it. In fact, HAL has been making huge efforts to transform the UAVs that are currently being used.
Yeah.
They are carrying out several joint ventures and also their own systems that are being developed now. And in time to come, armed drones will be a reality, even though HAL doesn't like to officially on record say that they are a reality very soon, but the fact remains that it's being worked upon. There has been a joint venture with an Israeli firm,
Yes.
and soon this should be a reality with the Indian forces.
Gaurav, I don't want our viewers to think that, all of these projects and these development programs are going to happen very soon. These are very, very difficult programs which might actually take many, many years. President Trump is coming, this month to India on his first visit as the US president, but there is no assurance that the US will clear the sale of these armed drones to India, and that's one of the reasons why India has to also develop its own.
Absolutely. If you want to be a superpower, what did Prime Minister Narendra Modi say? India doesn't just want make in India, but make in India for the Indian Armed Forces and export to the world. But to reach that, it will take time. Years, it could take decades. But work has been in progress for quite some time. And despite technology denial, India has done quite well. When President Donald Trump comes, the Predators, that will give you eyes in the sky for 36 hours or longer, especially for the Indian Navy. So that is America's interest also. That sea lanes of communication, India monitors it well. You can't have an aircraft everywhere. You can't have your ships everywhere. The drones can loiter and look after sea lanes of communication. That's aim 1. But aim plus would be to have a UCAV, unmanned combat aerial vehicle, which would be in the times to come be able to deliver lethal cargo on the enemy. And it could be anyone. It could be smugglers on high seas. If they're trying to take over a ship, you could look at something like that. There are big plans on the way. When you talk about Ghatak, Shiv, plans are huge. They will take time, but at least India is dreaming big.
And it is on the Ghatak that our next report is on, because that truly is the cutting edge. Now, look, drone warfare and what we're talking about might come across in some ways like a video game. I assure you it isn't. It is extremely complex. It's time and money consuming. And there are many years before India comes anywhere close to acquiring this kind of technology. What we're throwing light on in this next report here on Battle Cry is the Ghatak. Chances are you perhaps wouldn't have heard of it because it happens to be one of India's most secretive drone programs. It is to build a stealthy flying wing unmanned combat aerial vehicle, which means this is a drone very unlike the Predator, which can penetrate into radar-rich hostile airspace, hopefully without being observed, and then to unleash weapons on a pre-designated target. And this proves that India is truly on the cutting edge of futuristic drone research.
When you think of drone strikes, chances are you're thinking of this machine, the MQ-9 Reaper, an armed version of the legendary Predator drone. But drone strike technology is changing, and changing even as you watch this episode of Battle Cry. Countries are steeped in testing pilotless aircraft that can penetrate hostile, radar-rich airspace with as little chance of being detected as possible. Billions of dollars in research going into technologies like shape, structure, stealth coatings, vibrations, noise, and literally everything else that could make such aircraft less observable. And every country worth its salt is steeped in testing such platforms. From the France-led Neuron to the American Phantom Ray, the British Tyrannus, to much more recently the Russian Okhotnik, to even the Chinese. But even in this highly futuristic, cutting-edge area of drone research, India has decided to get busy. With stealth technology highly guarded by those who've mastered it, India has no choice but to develop its own stealth drone bomber Ghatak from scratch. Literally every nut and bolt of this concept air vehicle will be Indian. Quite apart from the technologies that will even allow for such a pilotless aircraft to be autonomous far from its controllers, there are very many steep challenges ahead, including the very shape of the aircraft, its stealth coatings, radar cross-section and signature reduction to render it as near invisible as possible. Unlike existing armed drones, such stealthy pilotless bombers would be formidable in any arsenal. The trick, though, is to nail the technologies. Everything else will follow. Bureau Report, India Today.
So the Ghatak is still many years away because very fundamental technologies have to be built and developed here in India. Gaurav, like you said, these are technologies that nobody on earth will share. Even countries like France, the UK, and Russia are struggling to develop credible stealth technologies because we know the United States is the only country that has actually mastered stealth technology. What kind of a challenge is it going to be for India to do this from scratch on the Ghatak?
So, one, Stealth, what does stealth mean? For the benefit of our viewership,
Yeah.
you and I have been studying this subject for some time. It should not be spotted on the enemy radars. It should be able to dodge the
Or
radars.
as less as possible.
Or as less as possible. You know, the signatures should be very small.
Yes.
So that kind of technology India has been trying to evolve. Will any country give you that technology? Very unlikely. You'd have to be a real, strategic partner
Yes.
of the next level.
And even then you won't get
And
it.
even then there's no guarantee that they'll give it to you or deny some aspect of it. Now,
Right.
if you want to build it in numbers, given India's huge size and requirement, we will have to do it on our own.
Yes.
Then to have an engine to sustain that kind of an aircraft, to have speed, stealth, and capability to deliver the weapons.
Absolutely.
So it's very, very complex integrating all these technologies, and it's like making an aircraft from
Yes.
scratch. The only thing is the pilot is not inside the cockpit. He's sitting maybe a couple of thousand miles away,
Yes.
and then guiding that aircraft. So very complex technologies that are involved in this. It will take time, but India's at it.
No, picture this. It's incredible. A situation like this, which may be many years away, is actually incredible to think about, because India needs to develop the data links, the satellite communications to be able to even control and communicate with such a drone at such large distances. But apart from that, the drone itself, the Ghatak that you saw in this report, it has to be shaped in a way that it is low observable. Electromagnetic radiation has to be managed. Infrared signatures have to be managed. All manner of vibration, like Gaurav said, the engine as well. But could, theoretically, many years in the future, a drone of this kind go undetected into Pakistani airspace or elsewhere to deliver a mission like what happened in Balakot? Abhishek, do you think that's ever going to be possible? Because India is developing these technologies, and it's difficult to think of missions other than what I've just described.
Well, they'll play an extremely crucial role once combat drones are inducted into the Indian forces. They can be used for precision strikes. It minimizes the human element in a lot of operations that will take place. So in that sense, it will be a very, very strategic induction. And not just armed drones. In fact, I spoke to R. Madhavan, the CMD of
Yes.
HAL, and he also said that the HAL is working towards having more sophisticated UAVs that can also drop material, which
Yes.
means ration can be dropped to places where troops are in the interiors. Even their things of other needs can be dropped through drones. So those kind of projects are also being worked upon, and very soon hopefully the HAL will be successful in transforming the power of UAVs that the Indian forces will have.
Now, the complexity of these development programs is difficult to overemphasize, Gaurav, but isn't it also heartening? The Indian defense industrial complex is often accused of, living in the past or over-promising what it can actually deliver. The DRDO is often criticized for that kind of thing. But when you look at projects like the Ghatak, Gaurav, it's almost like a breath of fresh air, because it means that India, in one way or the other, in such projects, is living in the future. It has cast its gaze many years, perhaps decades into the future, for a possible requirement then.
So Shiv, India is dreaming big, and it's not just a pipe dream.
Yeah.
It's hoping to deliver. A lot of things that, yes, there is a lot of criticism that are we trying to reinvent the wheel in many cases?
Yes.
Or, there is a reward for failing because money keeps getting pumped in if a project fails.
Yes.
But look at some of our scientists. They've been able to deliver an ASAT, an anti-satellite. You can bring down a satellite with a missile.
Yes.
You're doing that, and you're also trying to build a very futuristic weapon system, which will be a game changer. You don't risk lives of your pilots. You can bring down an enemy asset, and will it be an escalation? I do not think so, Shiv. Look at the way India is changing the nature of combat
Yes, absolutely.
in this region. You sent your fighter pilots into Balakot. Was Pakistan able to do anything about it? You were able to take out a terror target and keep your country safe. So you think big, and you're able to protect your interests.
Yes.
That's it. when you have strength behind you, you will be able to do that. If you're able to deliver a Ghatak, the enemy will also think twice before striking you.
The enemy will think twice before striking. As with all weapons, we emphasize here on Battle Cry, the purpose needs to be about deterrence. Such weapons are only really powerful if they never need to be used. But it's important to also remember that India doesn't have infinite resources and infinite time at its disposal. This is a developing country. There are limited financial resources for even development projects like these. But futuristic combat vehicle projects of this kind are important, and they do need resources and focus from the Indian government. So far, the Ghatak has been receiving it. Let's hope it isn't too far into the future before this vehicle becomes a reality and we can actually see it in flight test, because China and Russia have vehicles already in flight test. They are being operationalized, and it won't be too long before perhaps we see those vehicles actually dropping weapons and proving the next phase of their capabilities. Gaurav and Abhishek, thank you very much for joining me on this edition of Battle Cry. We'll see you at the same time next week. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, India's true strength will only be realized if no human needs to be sent into harm's way and no weapon ever fired. We're leaving you with these wonderful images from the just concluded Def Expo in Lucknow. Fantastic weapons demonstrations. Enjoy these pictures. See you soon.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.